Hello guys, welcome back. So far our environment looks like this. We have a Git repository on GitHub as well as same repository is available in our local system. Now I'm going to update my local repository with new code. After that this repository is differ from the repository which we have there in GitHub. Let's take the example that even other developer, nothing but a developer 2, who is using our Linux system, it is on AWS. This guy also want to work on the same code along with developer 1. Now he don't know what changes developer 1 has done. If he is trying to pull this repository and start developing it, there may be a problem. That is the reason we need to push our code into the GitHub repository all the time so that latest updates can be available for the developer 2 as well. For that, we should run a command called git push origin master. Here master nothing but a branch. I have shown you that while creating our GitHub repository, one branch has been created, right? So same branch we are going to push. Anyway, we are going to talk about this one more detail in the later point of time. So when we execute this command, our code which is there in our local system is going to get updated with the GitHub repository. Now developer 2 can able to pull this code and start developing it. Again, to pull the code, he has to run the git clone, right? Because he has to clone this repository on his local system. When he run the git clone, code get pulled into the other developer system. This is what we are going to try in this. This is what we are going to try in this. Now everybody's code is updated. So this is how GitHub helps us to share the code among the developers who are working on the same project. Now let's try the same thing. At this moment, our repositories are looks like this. We have same code over here. Now I'm going to update our code over here. Let's go and do that. So this is our GitHub repository, which is cloned from GitHub. Now let's open Git bash over here. Increase the font size. And here Git status, if I check, you can see there is no changes in our branch. Whatever is there in our remote repository, same I have pulled over here. ls, you can see only readme file. Now assume that this is a HTML project. I want to create multiple HTML files on this one. Let's take that I'm creating index.html file. So for that, index.html, I'm writing it as a h1. This is index.html file and I'm closing HTML. Okay, if you don't know the HTML, don't worry. This is just a header. I'm going to write it and save this file. Now if I see again git status, you can see there is index.html file. That is contact.html. va contact.html. So here I'm going to give our contact details are, I'm closing it up. Then I'm providing h2. Okay, h1 nothing but header 1, h2 nothing but header 2. Depends upon the numbers, the font size varies. Okay, phone number 123456789. Just I'm giving some random number and save the file. And I forgot to assume that I forgot to add an email to contact details. Let it be and save this file. And if I check a git status, so two files are there. From here, we have already tried how we can add these files to staging area and from there to local repository. So before committing this, if I check git log, you can see only one commit nothing but whenever we created our repository in the GitHub, at the time this commit was done, that commit was initial commit. We have added readme file, right? And also you can just see here author Ravdi and because we haven't set up our email ID over there. And if you see the date when we have done the commit, and by default it treated as a initial commit, right? Now we are going to commit our changes to this repository. For that, git add dot. Okay, git add dot nothing but add all new files or modified files which are there in my current repository. That is the meaning of this command. So I have added. Now if I check git status, you can see these files has been added to staging area. Now from here I want to push it into my local repository. So git commit -m added contact and index files. Okay, so this is how we can add our files. And if I check git status, so now you can see here it is saying that your branch is ahead of origin master by one commit. What does it mean? Our branch, nothing but our local repository, have one extra commit comparatively my remote repository. So if I check git log now, you can see how many commits are there. We have two commits, right? But whereas if I go to my GitHub and if I look for commits, you can see here commit, still only one commit is there. So it is comparing this commit with the local commits which we have done on our system. And our origin, you can just see here origin master, nothing but our GitHub account. In our GitHub account we are having this commit, whereas in our local repository we have extra this commit. Now I would like to make this commit in my remote repository. That is where we should use git push origin master. Whenever we execute this command, whatever changes I have done in my local repository, same are get updated with my remote repository. Here origin nothing but our centralized repository. Our centralized repository nothing but github.com. So we are trying to push our changes to our origin and onto master branch. Master nothing but onto this branch we are pushing. Let's try to execute this command and you can just see what happens at this moment. Okay, I could able to push my changes onto my remote repository. And now if I check in my remote repository by refreshing it, you can see one more commit over here. You can see here added contact and index files, and that is by Revdi. And by the way, whenever we are pushing our changes, it should ask for credentials, but in my case my credentials are already recorded in my local system. That is the reason it is not asking for credentials. But I'm going to show you how to set up the credentials when we are dealing with the Linux system. Okay, again I'm going back to my code, and this time I could see my index.html and contact.html, and it is updated 9 minutes ago. This 9 minutes is in our local repository when we have committed in our local repository. Content is same as what we have added. So this is how we can push our changes onto remote repository. Now assume that a developer too also want to work with this one. So as of now, we have done changes and changes has been pushed into remote repository. Now I would like to pull these changes onto other system, that is our Linux system. On Linux system, I want to pull and I want to do my modifications. How can I do that one? We'll see in the next lecture.